And this brings us to your number one item or number one thing that you learned throughout this first year of
Yeah.
the Recovery Machine podcast.
So I've this is a thought that I've had many times throughout the year, and it's kind of come into clarity for me that our value as people, our qualities as people, our empathy, our compassion, our intelligence, our work ethic, all of these things end up getting so linked to our profession. And so when the hammer falls and when you kind of get outed for your addiction, it's such a crushing blow, and it feels like getting back to work, getting back to that identity of being, for me, of being a nurse. And that was a feeling I had right at the beginning, would restore, I guess, my self-esteem, my feeling of self-worth. And it might sound sort of oversimplified here, but just coming to the conclusion and the awareness that those qualities within me are my own. They are freestanding, and they are not actually linked to my profession, to my former profession. And I say that as my number one because I think it was the healthiest conclusion that I have drawn this year in doing the podcast. I think the podcast has helped me understand that. I was figuring that out before we even started this, I think. And it's something that I have great empathy for my peers in our community who, if there's one thing that I would want nurses, maybe nurses specifically, to know, it would be that you are a hardworking, intelligent, kind, caring, empathetic, intuitive, insightful person. Not because you're a nurse. Those things made you a really good nurse. But you are not those things because you are a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole process of discovery and investigation and IMEs and, in many cases, treatment and rehab and discipline, all that stuff, it kind of can make us feel as though we're trying to clamber back to that person that we were, that had those qualities. It's like those are still there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's an unhealthy part of the of that. Again, I go back to nursing specifically, like the altruistic, gentle, kind Florence Nightingale. Let's wash our hands of that. I think, and I say that ironically. Florence Nightingale was a big proponent of hand washing in nursing fundamentals, but like let's put that to bed and say, like, let's build people up for these qualities and detach them from the profession, because I think that's really unhealthy, and we are doing a disservice if we keep those things linked.
Yeah, it was a bad idea from the get-go. I don't know why it started and why it's so prevalent, especially in the medical field. But people out there who aren't in the medical field or have never seen like a graduation ceremony, if you want to see something funny, go watch watch a doctor's graduation ceremony. You will not see more like pomp and flair and costumes, and it's almost like a religious ceremony. And I believe that over the years, it's become that because it's an excellent tool, and that it makes you believe that you're something that is more than yourself in this identity of whatever your profession is. So, which is false.
Completely.
It's clearly false. And believing that you are more, or that you're inherently better than someone else because you have attained whatever knowledge you've attained, that's if that's how you want to live your life, then that's up to you, and you can do what you want to do with it. But for me, I I'm I'm thrilled when people are interested in whatever education pursuit they're after. That's all good stuff, but I never liked the idea of tying your identity into your profession. Like it's it's a boundary in a way, right? It's limiting,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an excellent. Again, it's something that sets up. It's very useful for our current kind of setup, which is a hierarchy based top down system, because you get spit out, and you're like, hey, you're at the bottom of the medical thing, but you're better than everyone else. That's what that's what they tell doctors, right?
Yeah.
You know, the residents will be like, the doctors above them and the specialists, they're garbage. Look at this stupid GP. Like and it's like that. I mean, doctors are probably it's more acute for them, but every other profession plays that out to some degree as well. You
Yeah.
know, like I'm the most educated nurse and I've got the most experience, so everyone else better shut up. And there's like it comes with a whole just myriad personality types and everything that are built on this weird little idea that you're Nurse Susan or Nurse
Yeah.
Mike or whatever it may be. And yeah, it's I mean, for all your good traits, all your bad traits, whatever, you are just you.
Yes.
And you are many things. You know, it's more than just your job. So um yeah, that's a really interesting one as your top one, and very important because man, I did not know. Like I laughed at it when I was even when during graduation I laughed at it. I never took it seriously on the outside, but the shit was getting to me on the inside.
For sure.
My ego latched right onto that, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, now I'm like, I'm edged. It changed my own beliefs about myself in a way that was not. I mean, it was out of whack with reality. Basically, whenever that happens, is not a good thing. The idea is to be as close to genuine as possible and
Yeah.
keep that ego under control.
I also just wanted to add, I with nursing specifically, I wanted to give a nod to the fact that I think it is also rooted in our society's unfair female archetypes. That there is this perception of what is a good nurse, and a good nurse is one that acts quickly and is kind of has meeker qualities,
Mm,
is like endlessly empathetic, has motherly qualities.
sure. Yeah.
And I think that those are old fashioned, but still very much exist within nursing. And
Oh,
whether you are
absolutely.
male or female, you are judged by as a nurse as being good or bad based on having some of those qualities.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I think some of the nurses with the most longevity that I've met are the ones who break through that and are really assertive and have really firm boundaries in place and don't take any shit. And those are the ones who last a long time.
Oh, without question.
And
Yeah.
I'd be curious to ask some of those people now, like, is that what you were doing? Were you breaking free of that kind of the confines of that archetype and advocating for yourself first and then your patient and so forth?
I have asked individuals who are high level professionals that I've met, and I've seen some, and the ones that stand out to me, I only know a couple, but they appear to be absolutely impervious. So I'm naturally curious as to
Yeah.
how the hell they're pulling that off. And I ask them, like, how did you get like this? How
Yeah.
can you possibly have this level of patience and professionalism? And do you go home and like punch a punching bag or like how are you coping with this? But the answers I've always gotten have led me to believe that there's not a lot of like, they just saw that that's how they had to do it. They
Yeah.
saw early that if they didn't put up very firm boundaries, they're just wise enough naturally, it seems, to do that. If they
Yeah.
didn't put those up, they were going to get shredded. And then they just, like any skill, they got better and better and better and better and better until they can just maintain a smile while somebody's having an absolute tantrum and not a smile, but they
Yeah.
just maintain professionalism. And so yeah, I don't know. Maybe some people do really think it through, and others it just kind of they're like, this is what I better do if I want to survive.
Yeah, I think you're right.